Good morning, everyone. Welcome to part one of the Community Infrastructure Service Committee for Monday, February 13th, 2017. So we do have a long day today, so I want to make sure we go through this diligently. Okay. Councillor Galloway-Seelock moves the consent items. Councillor Gazzola?
I have a couple of questions, if I could.
Okay. Do you have, in particular, which items?
I have a question on 1 and 3, and I think
1 and 3?
Councillor Fernandez has something on 4.
Councillor Fernandez will have an item on number 4.
I think she's...
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of bringing those items up? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, on item 1, I wonder if you could explain what exactly does it mean. We're talking about an agreement with the school boards, and isn't it something that applies to all schools and all awards? I just wondered what is unusual about the Chicopee one.
My mic is not on either. Is it on?
Good. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
This memorandum of understanding is for the Chicopee school particularly. Otherwise, we would be using the traditional means that the school board has with regards to booking schools.
So what is the issue here that we need a special? What are we doing here that's different?
What this memorandum of understanding does for us is it allows us to get into the school. It was requested in past, as it says in the report, in order to allow us to animate the community and start with some programming in that community when the school's built.
Okay, and that's good, and I just wonder why that doesn't apply to throughout the city. I think we should be making more use of schools like that, but that's why I wonder, why is it just Chicopee? Why isn't it across the city?
Through you, Chair. So it was a special request that staff pursue this, so that's what we did.
So what do we have to do that we pursue it across the city, the entire city?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, I believe what we would have to do is sit down with the board and see what we could do particular to the other schools. The board does have its own policy as it pertains to school use, and it allows other user groups in the city to use their facilities as well.
I think it's a good move, okay? But I'm just saying let's use it for or let's at least look into it for the entire city.
Okay, I think that's noted. I think that would be a good suggestion. Thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Do you have any further questions on this item?
Not on item number 1, no.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez, are you on item 1? Anything on item 1? Okay, Councillor Singh on item 1?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if item 1 could be voted on separately, as my parents and I own property in close proximity to the school, and the programming would enhance the character of the neighborhood, so I would declare a conflict.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, item number 3, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just would like to know where this is. I was trying to find out where the location is this and what we're looking at. Apparently the school boards have no... Is it where we're doing all the other work in South Kitchener, or is it in a different location? If it's in a different location, why would we be interested in it? Because we're going to spend a lot of money in our own area. I'm just wondering...
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, if I understand your question correctly, the location of the school is in the Brigadoon Huron area around Woodbine Avenue, so just east of Fisher-Hallman Road in the south end.
No, but is it? We have plans for a lot of work in South Kitchener. Is that in the same location, or is that a different location?
Just a point of clarification, a lot of work with regards to facilities?
Yes.
Yes, we are proposing, in the capital forecast, we do have budgeted a community center in the southwest area.
Is that in a different area or in the same area?
It's a different area.
Well, that's what I mean. So they're in two different areas. So why are we even looking at that? We've committed to that community center and all other things. So why are we wasting our time and the school board's time?
Mr. May, you have a response?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if, Councillor Gazzola, you're referring to the Southwest District Park, where a number of facilities will be built, that's a regional facility, and so it will be inappropriate to put a neighborhood-based community center there. That is something that will attract people from right across the region. So the decision was made when Council approved the master plan not to include a community center on that property. So this is in close proximity to that, but not on the same property.
So in addition to all of that other stuff, we're putting another community center down there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the recommendation before you is that the school board is building a school. There may be an opportunity for us to build something and save costs, and so all we're asking for is direction to begin discussions.
Okay, Councillor Singh, are you on this item as well? Okay, so on to item number 4, Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, we've seen this item here before, and my concern continues to be when we do tenders. I mean, when we first learned that we needed to have a new snow disposal site, there were a number of issues that I raised right off the bat with regards to environmental services, environmental concerns, soils, and the likelihood that we would probably need more approvals by various agencies. Why was that not built into the original tender and consult price?
Through the chair, when the terms of reference for the consultant were put together in January of 2016, they were based on everything we knew at the time. And some of the additional requirements came out from the agencies during the design period. And that's why some of the items listed required additional work were outside of that scope.
And I can understand why some new things may crop up. But, I mean, with all due respect, I know I'm not a geotechnical engineer. I know I don't have the expertise. But I already noted right from the get-go, even in the beginning, that the identification of Strasburg Creek as a cool water creek was incorrect. So, I mean, I really think that we have to be a little bit more stringent when we're looking at how we accept these tenders. And if, unfortunately, MTE did not do their due diligence, it's just like any tender in any business. You have to suck it up and you know, accept the fact that MTE went over budget by $83,000. They should be learning how to absorb that cost. And I don't know how better to say it than in a situation like this where we just say, you know what? No, we are not going to give you the additional $83,000, and you have to figure out how to find it out better. You know, I think, Mr. Gross, I know that this was a very challenging project in terms of, you know, first time we've ever done something like this, and I definitely understand that. And certainly, when I look at the site, when I was out there last week, it looks really, really good. But I think we have to figure out a better way, and it's not just, you know, yourself and your department, it's in other departments. So I'm looking maybe to our deputy CAOs for some guidance here on how we can do a better job.
Okay,
and we don't have to keep
Fernandez,
coming back.
Is there any other questions pertaining to this
That's
item?
my question. I'm asking our senior staff if there's some way that we can do a better job of terms of reference, making sure we've identified everything, and when the tender is closed, the tender is closed.
But you're dealing with tenders in general. Are you going to deal with this specific topic?
So I'm
is there any
asking,
other
I'm
further-
waiting for an answer.
Okay, Mr. Wilmer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that, as Mr. Gross has said, we did the terms of reference based on the information that we had. and that's the best we could do. If we're going to do things differently, it would be to get into more detail at the design phase and invest more upfront in that way so that there are fewer unknowns when it comes to consultant selection.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe this is a further conversation that we can have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Singh, do you have a question on this?
If you don't mind, I have a question, but a brief comment. So would you want me to ring back in for the comment, or I can just say it at the end?
You can make your comment. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I'll start with my comment. My concerns are the same as Councillor Fernandez. A little disappointed that the cost for this just simply melting snow just keeps on going up more and more. Now, I realize a lot of times when attenders are approached, there's a certain contingency that's built in. And I don't want to repeat the same comments that Councillor Fernandez has already said. Do we not have the ability to say, not say no, obviously the work has started and we want to work with our consultant. If we act too tough, the contingencies will automatically go up down the road. But do we still have an avenue to go back and push back and say, no, you know what, some of the fault perhaps could lie with you as well, that you didn't properly assess. Perhaps there's a middle ground, as opposed to the full 80,000, approximate 80,000 they're asking. Do we have the ability to negotiate?
Through the chair, we have negotiated this amount. The amount that was being requested was significantly more.
Okay.
We've already negotiated on all of these items, and
are you able to
reduced them to the amount that's shown. One of the things that I can add is that for that last bullet, we actually invested $21,000, and that was review of earthworks, in order to save $69,000.
Are you able to publicly divulge as to what the initial ask was? Are you able to disclose what the initial ask was? You said...
Well, I can certainly tell you what the items were valued at, each of the bullets, if that's your question.
No, that's okay. You said the initial ask was much more than the $85,000.
It was,
and you
yes.
Negotiated. I just wanted to get that summarized figure, but if you don't have it, that's okay. Well, you've answered my question. You've said you've already negotiated, but one last thing. If we were to say no, what would happen?
In good faith, we've asked the consultant to do this work. We negotiated with them in good faith.
Did we change the parameters afterwards?
I'm sorry?
Did we change the parameters of what the initial RFP was after they were awarded the contract?
The RFP contained certain requirements and certain assignments. The items that we have here developed as the project was being designed and approved, and many of them came from the review agencies, simply because this is a project that is not a run-of-the-mill project.
So our requirements increased then?
Our requirements, as required by agencies, increased, and therefore we requested additional work to be done in order to get those approvals.
Fair enough. So that you've answered that question through that. We requested additional work.
Yes, we did.
And obviously we have to pay for that if you're requesting additional work. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I guess my first question was sort of an answer, and I was going to ask whether we had any option here.
Sorry?
I was going to ask whether we had any options here.
My short answer is no.
Because you've agreed to it or whatever. I'm curious as to why we didn't hear about this sooner. Why, like, if you were presented with a bill probably much in excess of $85,000, why wouldn't we have heard about it there?
Through the chair, the items, the first number of items we knew earlier. The last item, review of earthworks, was only known during the construction phase. And to be honest with you, what I wanted to do was to be able to manage this project within the budget that was assigned to the project, and that's why I've waited until now, because we now have, we're pretty close to knowing what the final cost is. and I wanted to ensure that we were managing everything within the budget that this council has set.
Okay, what are the outstanding encumbrances of $250,000? What are they? The outstanding encumbrances.
The outstanding encumbrances are essentially items that are still to be paid. I don't have a detailed list
Okay,
of those.
they're done, and we have no choice with them. Work
Yes.
has been done. Okay, my last question, you do point out that you saved $69,000, but when I look down at the bottom line, we only saved $24,000. What happened to the other $50,000? Where did we lose that one?
The 69 was saved. We still have 23 left over. And by the time that this project is completed in March, April, we will still be below the project budget.
Well, you have 69. I want the 69 you saved.
I'd like to tell you the exact figure today. I'm sorry that I can't, but I can say that it will be below the 3.2 million.
But it won't be 69. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, so that 69,000 is reflected in the costs incurred to date. So the total cost of the project will have 23,874 remaining after this purchase order extension.
Yeah, still not 69.
Thank you. So most of my questions were answered, but I just wanted to ask for clarification about when an additional agency like the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change requires additional work that was outside of the defined scope of work, is it always us to pay for that bill?
Yes.
That sounds like downloading from higher levels of government.
The fact of the matter, through the chair, is that we are the applicant. We are requesting approval. The agency says if you want approval, you have to do this work.
Okay, so have we learned anything from the new requirements that we had from these other agencies that would help us with budgeting for future projects?
Through the chair, if we were to do one of these again, we would certainly have much more information. But the information that they required for this project does not necessarily apply to other projects. This is a very specialized project.
Okay. So it's a learning.
It's a one-off
experience. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Gross, you mentioned that you spent $21,000 to save $69,000.
That's correct.
Could you explain that to me again? How that worked? $21,000 to spend on what?
We part of the pricing there was the first bullet was to do some additional sampling of some of the existing piles of material that were remaining on the site. We had a sense of what was in them based on information from our operations staff, but we wanted to be sure, we wanted to have a closer look at what was in those piles to see if we could use some of that material instead of hauling it off site. And by doing a further examination, we were able to make better use of some of that material. The examination and the re-engineering a little bit cost about $21,000. And through doing that, we were able to save approximately $69,000 because we did not have to either import material or export other material off-site. We were able to incorporate it into the project.
Okay, I understand that. Now, the $21,000 that was spent, was that done in-house, or did you have to hire contractors or something?
That was money that we paid MTE to re-engineer work that they had already designed so that we could incorporate some of those materials in a better way.
Okay, so the $21,000 and then the $69,000, are they reflected within the middle of the page 2 in those figures, or is that something outside? I don't know.
The $21,000 is monies that is part of the additional fee that is being requested for the consultant.
So it's part of the
It's
85,000.
part of the 85,000.
And the 69,000 that was saved is not.
The 69,000 was saved from the contract that Gateman Malloy did, which everything contributes to the overall project budget of $3.2 million.
Okay, so that's not shown in that package. That's sort of
Yes.
outside.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rose. Okay, we're going to move item 1, with Councillor Singh had noted as a conflict. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That's the. Okay, here you don't vote on that. Okay, items number 2 and 3. All those in favor? That's carried. Recorded vote on item number 4. Do you want us just to stand up? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That concludes the consent items. On to discussion items. Item number 5, we don't have any presentations and we don't have any questions. So, no, we don't have a delegation. No. Mayor moves it. All those in favor? Item number 5. No delegations. Do you have a question? You have a comment?
Can I make a comment?
You can make your comment. Go right ahead.
I hope I'm reading this right, but I'm really amazed, pleasantly surprised at quite a change as a result of these traffic calming procedures. Not only that, a change in the speeds, but also considerable change in collisions. I wonder if you could just comment on that. Am I reading that right?
Mr. Carmichael?
Yes, thank you. Through you, the chair. Yes, if you look on page 5.3 of the report, it outlines the impacts on both Highview and Yellow Birch Drive in regards to the implementation of the traffic calming measures. And those tables outline that the speeds have reduced in the neighborhood of 21 to 24% on Highview, and in the neighborhood of 7 to 12.5% on Yellow Birch. As far as collisions go, the rate that was determined based on the number of collisions occurring before measures went in was a total of 5.7 collisions per year for all 3 roadways, that being Highview, Yellow Birch, and Golden Meadow. In the 18 months since the measures have been in, the rate is down to 0.7. So that speaks that the number of overall collisions on the 3 roadways are down significantly since the implementation of the measures.
Okay, and that's all I wanted to point out, that we often talk about traffic calming, and it does show that it does work. It works well.
Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the comments in the report, and it looks like it's been quite successful. One question I have that sort of puzzles me is, in one of the recommendations, is that 2 of the speed cushions be removed. What's the rationale for that?
Mr. Carmichael?
Yes, thank you. Through you, the chair. Through every traffic calming implementation, we follow up with the residents with the follow-up review, and we resurvey each and every resident based on whether they still support the measures or not. And through that survey, and if you look again on page 5.4 of the report, you'll see that of the areas that we broke down the responses by, basically everybody supported the measures with the exception of the people living on Yellow Birch Drive, and that indicated that 15 of 45 only supported maintaining the measures, whereas 30 wanted them removed. We did a little further investigation into the comments we received from those people, and generally speaking, and I'm generalizing here, but the majority of the comments, their concerns were they didn't feel necessarily that the speed cushions were working terribly well, despite our studies showing otherwise, but more importantly, they had major concerns about the loss of on-street parking in the area of those speed cushions. And that's where their opposition came to it. So in their minds, reinstating on-street parking obviously meant more to them than reducing the speeds in front of the house.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. On to item number 6, dealing with the 2017 artist in residence appointment, and we have a presentation by Miss Emily Robson and our artist in residence, Miss Julie Sperling. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, I'm really pleased to be here today to introduce Julie Sperling to Council. She's been selected by the Public Art Working Group and the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee as the Artist in Residence for 2017. I'll just say a couple of brief words, and then Julie's going to talk a little bit about her project, and there's some photos to go along with it. And I just think it's worth reminding everyone that the Artist in Residence program here at the City of Kitchener was one of the very first of its kind. It was established in 1995 and has really proved to be a model for many other cities across Ontario and beyond. So we're really proud of this program, and in the last few years we've really tried to open this program up to artists working in a variety of disciplines. You might be familiar with our previous artist in residence from 2016, Sarah Granskow, who just finished up her final exhibition in the Berlin Tower Art Space, and she did a beautiful project where she made felted puppets and had musical performances and grew stuff in our city parks to dye her wool, and it was a really fantastic project, and I think starting to show the diversity of disciplines that are being proposed for this artist in residence program. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Julie to talk a little bit about her project for 2017.
So I am a mosaicist. I work predominantly in foraged materials, so a lot of stone, but also tile, glass, really anything I can find and get my hands on. I use the traditional mosaic tools that the ancient Romans used to break down the vast majority of my materials. No?
Oh. There.
Nope.
This is a good picture, by the way.
Thank you. Can you? Yeah, that'd be great. So what I do, there you go. So I take a rock like that and I chop it up into hundreds of pieces, and then I make art out of it. Next slide. That's a very simplified version of the process. So for the past 3 years, I've been creating a series about climate change. I have tackled issues like ocean acidification and changing precipitation patterns, and even the difficulties inherent in communicating about climate change. So far, my work has focused predominantly on the impacts and the science side, and so now I'm hoping to move more into looking at solutions. And that's where the residency comes in. I'm proposing to make a series of 4 mosaics, each exploring a different sort of climate or environmental sustainability solution. The ones I've proposed are energy, transportation, food, and natural stormwater management or green space in general. My hope is to partner with municipal departments and community organizations and then hold events where people can come, learn about these issues, commit to taking action, and then actually create a mosaic that symbolizes that one action that they want to take. And then I plan to take all those little community-made mosaics and incorporate them into a larger piece that symbolizes Kitchener's kind of collective commitment to acting on sustainability. That's it.
That's it.
That's it?
So I have nothing more to add.
We do have a question for, I'm not sure if Julie if it's for Julie or is it for staff? Julie, we have a question for you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. It sounds really interesting how what your plan is in terms of bringing different community groups together and raising awareness about climate change. When you complete that mosaic, first do you have a sense of how long that's going to take? And then once that mosaic is completed, will there be a centralized location where the community at large will be able to come and see it?
In terms of how long it takes, a really long time. These things are just painstakingly slow. But hopefully the nature of the kind of more modular mosaics will help it go a bit faster. In terms of having it on display, there will be an end of residency show here at City Hall. So it'll be on display there, and then after that, I'm not sure.
Maybe that's a good opportunity for public art to be located somewhere else. So, okay, great. It sounds really interesting. I'm looking forward to considering my interest in the environment, seeing how this all rolls out. Perfect. Good luck.
Thanks.
Councillor Marsh? No, we're not finished yet. Last question, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for this exciting looking project ahead. I know that a lot of times these projects can take on a life of their own, and they take a lot more time even than you might already anticipate. So feel free to modify the project to make sure that it's within the scope of the workload that's expected of the artist in residence. That's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. That's all it is. Thank you, Julie. I mean, you'll move it? Okay. Councillor Davey will move it. I think from just a preview, what we've seen, I think it'll be an outstanding project and look forward to seeing that. And it's been moved by Councillor Davey. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. On to item number 7, dealing with the Dune Pioneer Park Community Center expansion business case. There is no presentation, so if you have questions, please key in. Oh, we do have a oh, sorry, I thought I didn't see that. I looked at no presentation. Sorry, we do have some delegations. Sorry, just wanted to give a heads up to the delegations. You do have 5 minutes to speak to your presentation. And first up, we have Pierre Chauvin from MHBC Planning. I just saw that. Okay. Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Pierre Chauvin with MHBC Planning. With me this morning is Ray Osmond. He's our Parks and Recreation expert on our team. As well on our team, we have architects from Jim Fright, architects who are involved in sort of some of the assessment of the structural components of the building. I'm here this morning, and in our mind, this is a good news story. This is a project that's been on your books for a number of years. At least since 1999, the concept of a business or a proposed building expansion has been on your books for a number of years. And what I hope to do is just kind of move forward quickly through the exercise that we've been engaged in since April. It's been over 9 months process, and we're happy to report that we're within budget, and certainly we feel we're proposing an expansion that meets the needs of your community for now and in the future. Let's see if this works. No, I'll try this. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, as required by your community center feasibility study, or sorry, your leisure master facilities master plan, which was done in 2005, any new expansion to your community facilities requires the preparation of a business case, which is what we prepared. As I said, this proposed expansion has been proposed or discussed since 1999, deferred several times over the years, but here we are finally in 2017, and hopefully moving forward over the next couple of years with a future expansion of this great facility. We have provided this business case to not only provide the funding and design and construction components of the addition and sort of the business case will move forward, but part of this involved engaging the public and residents of the community to find out what they required in part of their addition. And I'll just speak to that briefly. I'd like to note that from the very beginning, the library was not really a component of this project. Not to say that it wasn't considered or the library representatives weren't at the table. They were certainly there throughout. But really, the library board had no funds or capital money in their capital budget to allocate towards the proposed expansion. This community center is the only community center south of Bleems Road, one of 14 community centers in the city. It's got a square footage of about 15,000 square feet currently. That includes the library, so actually without the library it's about 9,700 square feet. Sits on about 3 hectares of land, about 7 acres of land. When the property was, or the community center was open in '89, there was about 7,200 residents in this community. Now it's projected over the next 20 years that population will balloon to over 31,000 people and about 4,000 new dwellings in this growing part of the community, as you all know. So really with this expansion, our intent is to meet that projected demand over that 20-year time horizon. There are a number of challenges associated with this expansion. Obviously, with any expansion, we have to be cognizant of our neighbors, and certainly there is this established community center is surrounded by a residential neighborhood, so any expansion would have to be mindful of that and ensuring proper buffering and setbacks from neighboring residents. The site topography is a bit of a challenge here. There's about 4 meters of grade difference from the northern, I'll call the northern half, portion of the property, which is at the top of the screen, to the actual building. So there's quite a bit of a challenge. So any addition or any changes to the parking lot or basketball courts, for example, would likely require some structural elements or retaining walls or whatnot. Parking is a bit of a challenge here as well during the most busy evenings, as well as community facilities or community events across the road. For example, the soccer pitch across the road is utilized quite heavily. This parking area becomes quite full on any given night. So that's obviously a challenge with any addition. Accessibility is a key issue, and with the entrance at the this property is already ramps provided to the building, and the expansion will need to ensure that continues to be fully accessible. Although not a major obstacle, there is the GRCA flood line, which is pretty close to the property, and any expansion towards the creek, the Schneiders Creek, which the facility backs onto, would have to be mindful of those regulatory requirements. As I noted, the library was a key player in this particular project, and they wanted to ensure that their presence was key, and that's certainly one of the things that we've heard throughout the consultation. The structure itself is unique. Our architect has commented on the fact that a lot of these turrets that are there, if you've seen this building, this building is built with pods and turrets that are all structural elements that keep the roof structure intact. And so any addition would have to essentially be almost a standalone piece with some rearrangement of internal walls. Obviously, and finally, which leads to further costs, is the consideration of LEED development to LEED standards. The intent would be to be able to design this to LEED standards, but really the cost associated with LEED tends to be sort of the monitoring and reporting of those elements. So I'm mindful of my time. I'll quickly go through this. We've consulted broadly throughout this project since April. We've consulted with over 1,200 people through a variety of different processes. We've had an online survey which was extremely successful, and I have to thank your staff at the community center who helped tremendously in getting the word out and getting the survey out, and particularly Tegan McKenna and Natasha Vole helped tremendously with that. And as well as we consulted with your own staff on a variety of occasions, as well as the staff at the community center. All of that input fed into sort of our options. We've presented two options here. Option one being the recommended option, which falls within your budget allocation of $3.7 million. There is about a 3,800 square foot renovation component to this project internally to the site. We're also recommending two new additions, a large gym, double gymnasium, which was one of the sort of the number one recommendation in all the consultation, that we have a full-size gym. The existing gym that's there is just undersized. The roof height is just not adequate. So really, that was really the number one issue that came forward in the consultation, and we're recommending that that be implemented. As well as an addition out to the front of the building to add space to provide for additional multi-purpose flexible room space, which is another key recommendation, as well as provide additional storage throughout the building, which was another component. We're recommending to relocate the entrance and redesign the entrance and foyer to this building to try to bring sort of the outside in and allow for more social nodes and social spaces within the building. And ultimately, like I said, the total building would be about 15,000 square feet, which is probably in line with some of your more traditional and more, larger community centers serving such a similar type of population, all within your budget. Now, that wasn't really all that we've heard. One of the main issues, other issues or recommendations we heard throughout the consultation was the need to either have a pool, which was not really an option at this particular site, but if not a pool, a splash pad. There is an existing splash pad, if you'd want to call it that. That is at the center, but we are suggesting as part of this preferred, what we call preferred option or option 2, that a splash pad be incorporated and redesigned as part of this expansion. In addition to that, we're also suggesting that the space that, the size of the rooms that you're going to be afforded with under option 1 may be somewhat constrained and won't allow for the sort of the proper flexibility over the long term in terms of providing a range of programming space. So we were recommending a slightly larger addition at about 800 square feet more than option 1. So those are the really main differences between the two options, and that particular option came in at about $4.2 million, obviously over budget, but this was our preferred option. And as I understand through the staff report, that there are some funds being made available to address the splash pad issue. So maybe I'll leave it at that. Those are my comments and a sort of a brief highlight of the process. And I do apologize I went over your time limit, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We do have a few questions for you. Councillor Gazzola.
You keep talking about we're coming in within budget. Is that your part of the job, or are you talking about the whole job? The whole project?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the whole project is what I was referring to. So
okay, so you're within the budget estimates. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to look and see what exactly the difference between option 1 and option 2 is. Because I'm looking here at option 1, it looks the same. Where would I see it in this picture here?
Can I point with this? Oh, there it is. Well, the main difference between using option 2, which is up on the screen, you'll see a large splash pad out front by the parking lot, which is not on option 1. And the large green area, which is the front addition to the building, that is the other main difference. The size of the rooms and foyer and entrance to the building is quite a bit larger than option 1.
Okay, so that it's basically in that front part because
Correct.
it appears that we've approved to do the splash pad separately. So, okay. Your part of the job, part of this project, is just to work on the business case. You don't do any of the design or anything like that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, that's not part of this particular our mandate with this business case.
It was just a business case. Yeah. I thank you. I have some questions of staff, if I could. Okay. Maybe just one more question. One of the other questions I had, there's a population down there right now of around 20,000, and we're looking at, you're saying 31,000. Where is that population coming from?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarification, you're referring to the source of that information?
No, like if you can go back, I think it was the first or second page, yeah, that.
Yep.
Yeah, where is, I thought the area was almost totally built up, so I'm just curious as to where the additional population's coming from.
Well, there is a large portion, through you, Mr. Chair, as you know, there's a large portion of undeveloped land in southwest Kitchener that are in various forms of draft approval or registered state.
Okay, that's fine. I wondered if that's what it is. So down in the south.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Up next, we have Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Pierre, and it was good to work with you and Raymond and all the partners as we worked through this process. I think we did some good justice to what we heard the community wanted. And you may not be the right person to answer this question, but on page 7-5, there is, under financial implications, there's a difference. One says $3,952,919, and the second one says $3,974,000. Can you help me understand that, or is that more of a staff question?
Mr. Hildebrand?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, the difference between the two, the first option is the estimate that comes in through the business case, and the second amount is the actual amount that we have budgeted for the project.
Okay, so the 3,974 is the budget.
That's
for
correct.
The project. Okay, and so we're still according to the estimate, we're still under the budget then.
Correct.
Okay, so Pierre, when you were looking at the different options, and maybe we can go to the picture of the option 2. Okay. So when we were originally looking at option 1, which I thought was the one that we would be hearing mostly about today, we didn't hear too much about option 2. Where do you see the larger multipurpose rooms? And we're not going to talk about the splash pad because the funding is there for that. But some of the extra space, where do you see that being used based on the business case that you were doing and what you heard from the public?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I might rely on Ray to help answer some of this, but generally the best practices in terms of community use and facility space like this is to ensure that they're multi-purpose, they're large enough, nice square rooms that can be partitioned and used for multiple different types of activities. And effectively the larger the space, the better flexibility you would have. And that's really what we saw as an added benefit. In fact, when we did tour some of your facilities, some of the staff's comments in terms of some of the preferred size of rooms and other types of facilities were more in line with what we were recommending in option 2. And so, Ray, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that.
Thank you, Peter. Just a quick comment through you, Chair. One of the great things about this type of facility, it's a neighborhood hub, it's a community hub, and one of the things we see here is the tremendous ability to cross-program. And anytime you can have a multi-purpose space, which is what's kind of a thread that runs right through the report, the multi-purpose use of the space in terms of cross-programming with all the different ages, particularly as you deal with the library and the gymnasium, the 2 gymnasiums, and the ability to do a whole bunch of things fitness-wise, neighborhood-wise, and so on, is to bring people together and be able to cross-program in the spaces. The larger you can make the multi-purpose spaces, the more valuable they become as time goes on in terms of population growth.
Okay, and that's kind of where I was going to go with the large increase in the population. It might, in your opinion, would you say that it's better to sort of, in a way, go a little bit bigger to make sure that we already have everything in place, that we don't have to look at it later on and say, oh gosh, I wish we had expanded this area because we could have divided into 2 rooms. We can rent this larger space out better. In your opinion, would you say that would be sort of a little bit maybe wiser at this time?
I think you're making a wise decision to expand the space at this point. I think the hub itself, as we look at it in terms of your program growth, absolutely. The bigger the multi-purpose space is, yes, the more valuable it becomes. But by the same token, you don't need to go too large so that your space becomes a little bit more in terms of, I guess, an expenditure on the facility and demand on the facility. I think the space that you also see here that's not in green is there's a huge social space in the triangle, if you would, that's created in between. As we grow forward as a community, and as the city of Kitchener, by the way, have done some really good work in all your community centers, and one of the things we found, we looked in the centers, was you're starting to see a bigger use of the social spaces we call social nodes. You're seeing the things in green have the value of being able to cross-program, but there's also a piece in the middle. You get the ability to cross-program because it's a social node. That means people will come together more and more and more, and people want to be able to come together and socialize and meet their neighbors and feel more connected to the community. So that happens as well. So the space in terms of the physical plant, or the physical footprint on the site, you can only do so much. The other thing I'll quickly say is that this space is a hub, not just a building footprint itself, but the bigger area around the site. We've identified in the report more about the parks and the amenities of the park, and other park cross programs as well into the center. So it's also it's a valid point in terms of how you go forward.
Okay, that's great. All right, I see my time is up. I might come back in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, I'm not too sure who would answer this question, but I'm just going to throw it out. On this particular project, will the community center be closed during all the construction, or will it be partially open? How will that take place?
Mr. Hildebrand.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, the community center itself will be closed. There's going to be extensive renovations, and it will be a construction site. We are looking into keeping the public library portion open and trying to find ways to keep that part open. But the center itself, once we start into construction, it will be closed.
And this particular project would take how long to construct? From when to when are you planning to do it?
It will take, from when we begin, it'll take about a year for construction.
So what happens to all those programs and activities? Did you sort of go on hold, or what? Located elsewhere to other community centers to help out, or?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, this will be a discussion with the Neighborhood Association. It's not unlikely, or it's not uncommon for neighborhood associations to go to local schools to see if there's availability of gym space, things like that. But there might be a decrease in some programming over that year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
Yeah, I just have 2 questions. The first one is with regards to, is it going to be a 3 gymnasium center with this proposal, or is it just 2?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it'll essentially be 2, but the new gymnasium will be a size of a double gymnasium. with the ability to partition it off to make it effectively three, at the end of the day, three sort of multi-purpose spaces. Caveat is that the existing gym isn't a full-size roof, and it's not a, although it's being used as a gym, it has its limitations.
Right, so it's essentially it's a 3 gymnasium with the caveat that the one that's currently there isn't a full-size roof, right?
Correct, and our view too is that that existing space could even be repurposed and reused into other sort of community space as well that may not necessarily be a gymnasium space, but could be used for other types of programming as well. So,
but that's nothing's contemplated in changing the interior of that through this business case, is it?
No.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is just with regards to the library, so I don't know, probably more Mark than anyone else. If I look at this correctly, the entrance to the library is going to change. And I understand there's some stained glass windows that might need to be preserved or saved from a library perspective. Is that something that's being contemplated through the budget currently?
Through you, Chair Anitis, we're aware through the community and through the library that the stained glass windows are very important, so we'll be contemplating that as we move forward. Okay,
that's great. And it's every effort's going to be made to keep the library open, because I know from a library board perspective, Pat, that's important to the library.
Through you, Chair Anitis, that's our intent, is to try as hard as possible to keep it open, and if that's not possible, then we can also look at other options.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Just a question about, well, I had the same question as Councillor Galloway-Seelock, but my other question is, I'm a little bit confused why we're hearing about the preferred plan and then the recommended plan, but we're hearing more about the preferred plan, and I'm trying to understand from staff's perspective why staff is recommending option 1 and not option 2.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, staff are recommending option 1 with the addition of a splash pad. In order to stay within the budget, option 2, besides the splash pad, also had 800 square feet of additional space, and we do not have the budget for that 800 square feet. Now, staff thought that although we're decreasing the space size, it still is a space that is similar to a Country Hills and our other mid-sized community centers, which serve a similar size population.
Similar size as what we expect in 20 years, or similar size as what we have now?
Around the same size as what we expect.
What we expect. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Just maybe a little bit more on what Councillor Marsh was talking about, the service areas and the population that the Dune Pioneer Park Community Centre will serve. According to all your studies and comparisons to other community centres, you feel that the option 1 size will suffice for the coming years?
Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Hildebrand.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis. If we had the budget, it would be preferable to have the bigger space, because as was indicated by the consultants, those were the opportune spaces that we saw at other community centers where we see some good flexible programming. However, we do not have the budget, and staff don't feel that there'd be a significant decrease in flexibility if we were able to look at decreasing the size to meet budget.
The Stanley Park Community Center in the ward that I serve have those multi-purpose rooms, and they are used very well. Can you maybe comment on how the multi-use rooms at the Dune Pioneer Park Community Center will allow programming to expand?
I can take a stab at this through you, Mr. Chair. Currently, there's only effectively 2 multi-purpose rooms, if you discount the gymnasium, that are being used for multiple different activities. Even in the gymnasium, if you throw that in, we're at about 80% sort of usage. So we're already getting sort of at a point where the facility is sort of at capacity. And I'm sure when Pam speaks, she can attest to that. So the neighborhood association is finding there is certainly a demand there, and with the proposed population, I think, and the proposed addition, you'll have a total of 4 multi-space rooms that could be used for multi-purposes and multiple different activities. So it'll give them that flexibility to address and respond to the community needs.
Yeah, I think they're fantastic. You know, at Stanley Park, you know, one night you could have an art class in there, the next night it's a yoga class, and the next night it's an aerobics class. So they're great rooms, and they do really expand the flexibility of the programming. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez, are you questions to the delegations or questions to staff?
Well, I was going to suggest that we hear the other delegation, and then if there are any further questions, that we could carry on. Because I think that we've exhausted our questions for Pierre, but I know I have some more questions for staff.
Okay. Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions that I think might involve our consultant. The first question, though, I want to ask of staff is, what was the budget for our consultant? The
45.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, it was $45,000.
And the job was done within budget?
That's correct.
Now, my other question is, why wouldn't we do that in-house?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, I don't believe staff have the capacity to do the extensive work that needs to be done to lead a detailed business plan, and it requires the use of an architect as well as other professionals that we don't readily have access to, and that we would need to, if we tried to do it ourselves, we would have to bring them on board anyway.
Okay, I'm not convinced. I figure our staff is pretty competent, and they may need other help, but that's another issue. I want to just ask, while we have the consultant here now.
Just hold on a second, Mr. Councillor Gazzola. Mr. Hildebrand has something to add.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, just for clarification, capacity means, what I meant by capacity was the time, because they have their regular duties to do, so they don't have the time to do it.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to hear.
Okay,
It's not ability,
it's time.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point, and I'll put it at the back of my mind. So I want to, now that we're doing an awful lot of looking at climate change, and unfortunately it raises some questions in my mind here, in that we're extending this building. What is that going to do? What is it going to do to our the amount of energy that we have to use, and the amount of tons of carbon that it's going to produce? Are we taking that into account? It would appear to me we have to take that into account from here on in at everything we look at. So what is the impact here? I noticed you mentioned a lead, but what does that do? What does that lead? Does it cut down in our energy uses, or can you expand on that a little bit?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, those lead design initiatives would allow ultimately help reduce energy costs in the long run. So, so there's a number of different building components or design elements that can be incorporated into the design, even without going to a LEED standard. And I'm sure that'll be something that your staff will be looking at when they're going out with a tender and looking for consultants to bid on this project, that they're incorporating some of those design elements to help reduce some of those ongoing operating costs.
Okay, that was my point. Where do we deal with that issue? Because it's an issue that we're going to have to deal with on everything going forward. So, do any suggestions come from your part of the study, or is that totally something that we deal with when we go out to tender?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it really wasn't part of this terms of reference. It's certainly something that I would expect would be incorporated as part of the design component of this project.
Okay, so when we go out to tender, it will have an impact on our tender. Is that part of, I guess this is the staff, is that part of our concern, or is that not?
Through you, Councillor Ioannidis. LEED was considered by the architect, I believe, when we were going through the designs. We were not going LEED Gold. I believe we were considering LEED Silver with regards to this facility expansion.
Okay, and I guess I was trying to understand, what does LEED Silver do? Does that make things look better, or does it actually cut our energy costs?
Through you, Councillor Ioannidis, I'm not an expert in LEED. However, it's my understanding that it does add costs to the construction. It's considered in the construction costs, and there are savings. There are expected savings as we implement these LEED elements.
Okay. Just one final question, and I just want you to confirm, from what I understand, looking at the operating costs, there will be no additional staff required as a result of this addition.
Through you, Councillor Ioannidis, no, that's incorrect. There is additional operating costs associated. I do not have the specific numbers in front of me. However, there's costs associated with programming staff and staffing the community center, and there's also additional facilities management costs.
Well, the background information here it did indicate additional operating costs of $115,000. I was curious, and there was no detail whatsoever as to what that is. And somewhere I thought I looked at it, and the amount of staff remained the same. So, am I reading that wrong?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, there will be no addition of full-time staff to the FTEs to the budget. However, there will be likely some part-time staffing costs associated with the expansion.
Okay, I don't want to hold things up today, but you have an increase here on 761 of 115,000. Can we get, before this comes back, can we get a little more detail as to what that is? I mean, we need to make these decisions now before we plan to build. So we can get a little more detail on it?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, we don't have any further questions. Thank you, gentlemen. Next delegation is Pam Ritz from the Dune Pioneer Park Community Association. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, on behalf of the Dune Pioneer Park Community Association and the community center, or the community itself, I'd like to thank you for your support, your financial support of our long overdue and highly awaited expansion build. I'd like to say a special thank you for approving the extra funds for our splash pad. That was something the community expressed loudly and clearly in their feedback needs and wants, other than wanting a pool. So we're extremely grateful for your support on that as well. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am, we all are, about this. Jumping up and down with glee is how I feel, but that's not too professional, so I'll just say thank you very much for now. Also, I'd like to say special thanks to all the city staff who worked so hard to get us here, as well as Pierre Chauvin and Ray Osmond of MHBC Planning. I'm excited and honored to be the president of the board through this expansion time, and I look forward to working with everyone on the next phases of the project. Thanks again.
We do have a question for you, Pam.
Sure.
Councillor Fernandez.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for coming in and making your comments about your enthusiasm. I know you've had your doubts whether this is actually going to happen, and certainly so have I. When we look at the two options, and notwithstanding the fact that we know we don't have the budget right now for the larger expansion, do you see the community center neighborhood association being able to use the expanded version of the community center with a better revenue generator than the smaller version?
Of course, yes. However, we're looking at option one with the budget, yes. If also, through the chair, sorry, I can make a comment about the question on the multipurpose rooms. Our multipurpose rooms now, I believe, are smaller than any multipurpose rooms than most of the other centers. So our multipurpose rooms are multipurpose rooms because they have to be, not because we wanted them to be. Definitely, yes, we could. However, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
Okay. And not that I want to put words in your mouth, but I think you're speaking cautiously because you don't want to run the risk of us losing the whole project by us going to an option two. Would that be fair to say that?
Well, I've been up here begging for money numerous times. And yes, probably it would be. Certainly, and as Mark stated, it would be better to have the extra room. We're still, I fully believe, and we're very grateful, please don't anybody think we're not, we're very grateful for the expansion as is. We will be probably, by the time it's done and back in business, full to capacity at that point with what option one would give us. So.
And I think that's kind of my point, because I think we are so close. We're at capacity in just about every program right now, and sometimes it's wiser to go just that extra step. And so my next questions will be towards to staff with regards to funding. Because it's going to, I think, enlarging some of those spaces is actually going to come back to us in spades with the ability to use those rooms, as Councillor Schneider indicated, for many, many other options than what they're being used for now. So I'm being optimistic that I'm going to push a little harder just to see, but certainly I'm fully supportive of option one if that's what we have to do. But it's always nice to just try a little harder, and I'm going to push a little harder. But thank you, Pam. Thanks for all the work that you do, and the community association for everything that you offer for our community under some pretty tight constraints sometimes.
Thanks.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Councillor Fernandez got council to work together to make sure that the splash pad was kept. And so along with option one, the splash pad will remain. Do you foresee that this option one, the room sizes, will give you the ability to increase your programming now and in the future?
Through the chair. Yes. However, I do think that the extra room will make more difference. And again, I don't want to be here saying, oh, I want option two, but yes, we would love it, but it's over budget. But it would, I'm sure that, I know 800 square feet in the scheme of things doesn't sound like a lot, but it gives those rooms, each of those rooms, a little more room. So yes, to answer your question, it would be great. However, I can see us making do with the option one.
Okay, thanks. It's just, we have to really work a balance between all of our community centers.
No,
so
I understand.
Thanks so much.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I think my questions have been answered. I don't want to ask you, because I think it's good to see that you're happy to where we're going. I'm really in my mind wondering whether it's the wisest thing to do, going option one or option two, but I won't ask you that. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Singh.
I'm sorry, my book.
Okay, we have no further questions. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Questions to staff? Councillor Fernandez?
Yes, so, I've shown my cards here, Mark, in terms of where I'm considering going. When I look at the budget, between the difference between option 1 and option 2, I see a 13% contingency construction of $400,000. With respect to contingencies, and I just was squawking about making sure that we stay within our tender prices. Is the 13% typical contingency, or is it a safeguard contingency, considering some of the constraints on the site?
Mr. Hildebrand?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, this is a typical contingency, and I've got some concerns if we started using that contingency or budgeting for more space with that contingency, considering the site constraints. They're significant. The ones that concern me most is the site grading, as well as being around a floodplain. So those two constraints concern me a little bit, as well as adding on to a facility doesn't seem to be as straightforward as you would believe. So those three things, I think, are very important considerations as we consider the expansion.
And I agree that the grading and the floodplain, but we are not actually building too far back. Once we add that double gym we're not going into the floodplain whatsoever from the original plan, right?
That's correct. That's the block plans that are shown in this business case. That is correct. It's not going back, but it's coming forward.
Okay. If there was a way that because right now I'm estimating at roughly, we've got about a $25,000 difference between what is budgeted and what the estimated price for the option 1 is. And the difference between option 1 and option 2 is $308,000 roughly. So let's say $300,000. Where would we think about if we were to try and find that amount of funding to add to this community center?
Within the existing construction budget, where would we find the money?
No, let's say that the budget is the $3,974,000, with the estimate is $3,952,000, but the option 2 sits at additional $300,000 higher. Is there somewhere within all of our capital budgets and everything that we have set aside for other projects, is there any ability whatsoever to find the $300,000?
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I could ask Councillor Fernandez to clarify where the $300,000 is coming from. My read of the budgets on page 7-79 and 7-80 show that the cost difference is about $500,000, and so if we could just get some clarification on that.
Okay, sorry. And then what I was looking at was the 3,974 price tag and the $4,828 price tag.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe you may be adding the splash pad into one of the options and not the other option. That may be the difference.
That may be the difference?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So to answer your question, whether it's $300,000 or $500,000, which I think is my read, we would basically go back, I don't have it in front of me, look at the 10-year capital forecast and delay other DC-funded indoor rec facilities. Off the top of my head, the next 2 indoor rec facilities would be a community center in the southwest end and in addition to Mill Cortland.
Okay. So, I don't, we just talked earlier about a partnership in the Huron South area related to a school build. The community center that you're talking about in the South District, that's a standalone project, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not thinking about pulling money from any other projects. That's really not my intention, because each community deserves to have their community center, and certainly we've heard from the councillor in Ward 5 that there is that deficit. Is there other
Can you wrap up, Councillor Fernandez? Your time is up.
Sorry?
Can you wrap up? Your time is up.
Is there other locations that we would consider looking at in the capital forecast?
So through you, Mr. Chair, because the vast majority, if not all, of this expansion is funded through DCs, we would look at the DC funded projects. And so that's why I say that we would look at indoor rec facilities, and those two are the next ones in line, so they would be delayed.
Okay. And doing so, would that put this project in a delayed mode? If I was to say to you, I would like us to look at that addition, option 2, would that delay what's happening now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if council agreed to that today, no. My understanding is we would proceed with that option, but it would delay those other projects that I referenced.
Okay. All right. All right. I'd like to move the project. I'd like to move the motion.
Okay. Mayor Manovic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone for the presentations. I'm pleased to see what's before us here, because I know a lot of work went into it, and I'm pleased that we were actually able to increase the budget for this project through the capital budget process, where we did at the time increase it by several $100,000 in order to accommodate the splash pad part of the project. One question I have for staff is, I know one of the things I brought up with staff back several months ago after the opening of St. Jerome's University was moving towards a new methodology around building construction called Integrated Project Delivery, or IPD. And this is something that my understanding with the university actually helped not only bring their particular project in line from a cost perspective, but also allowed them to work very collaboratively with the architects and with the ultimately with the construction company in order to actually get some additional spaces and better use of spaces and get it in under budget finally. I'm wondering if this is something that's being or has been looked at, or if not, can be looked at as part of this project, because it may mean it's a mechanism for us to achieve some of the space concerns without any additional dollars.
Mr. May?
So through you, Mr. Chair, this is the first that I'm hearing about this. It's certainly
something I've talked about with Ms. Fletcher.
Okay, so she's not here today, so it's certainly something I'd be happy to speak with the mayor about before council approval.
Okay, because I think it is something that potentially could be looked at.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I have a number of questions about options 1 and 2, and now's the time to deal with it. If we look at 781, the estimates for option 2 are $4,282,667. Okay, and if we look at 779 and add in the $200,000 that we've approved on budget day, we have a budget of $3,974,000. So we have a difference of $308,000 between option 1 and option 2. Okay. I have a couple of questions along those lines. Can the gym be downsized a little bit to make up that additional space? And thereby provide the space for the meeting rooms and whatnot.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the gym space right now is optimal size. What you want to do in this building is to make sure you optimize all the spaces. That's one space. If you started to decrease the size, you would create problems in terms of how you design, how you run programming. So as Pierre alluded to earlier, when you put in a dividing curtain, if you would, or a wall, it gives you optimal space on both sides for all kinds of different activities, whether it be sport, whether it be recreation, meeting needs, special events, or the case would be. So we looked at the actual size of the gymnasium. We started from a larger perspective, and you have now a space that we believe is optimal in design. When you get to the design phase, one of the things you can do is look at the gymnasium in terms of how much space you allow to accommodate the needs of the gymnasium, i.e. the small change space, the washrooms, that kind of thing. But the gymnasium functionality is very important, I think, that you keep the square footage that you have. It's optimal in terms of the cross-programming value of the space.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do want to clarify, at looking at page 7-81 closer, it appears that the option 2 already includes a splash pad, so the figure of $300,000 that Councillor Fernandez referenced is an accurate distinction of the two options.
Is it accurate?
It's an accurate. Thank you. Okay, another question, and I just want to ask this question. What are the possibilities of delaying the splash pad, which is $200,000, and we would then have a difference of $100,000? What's the downside of that? Is that a possibility, or? I think what my thinking is that the splash pad could be added at a later date without any major problem.
Mr. Hildebrand, just remain clicked in, please.
Sorry. Through you, Chair Ioannidis. That was one of the suggestions when we were considering the splash pad itself, and we have to remember that it was the most important outdoor amenity. So it was really it's really seen as important to the community. So I think that there will be disappointment if we were to put it off.
And I appreciate that, but was that question put to the community? Was whether would they be happier with option 2 and wait some time? I know when you went through the public engagement, the splash pad is important because it's been there now, and but what if they considered that other option?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, we did not go back to the community with both options.
And I guess I say should we? I don't know. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going by what Pam Ritz said, and she's basically mentioned that was probably one of the number one priority was the splash pad. Councillor Schneider, pardon me? I was just repeating what Pam Ritz had mentioned, what was a priority for the community on her behalf. Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair. And I just, with the splash pad, building it at the same time as the renovation is done, does not save us money if we were to do the renovation and add the splash pad later?
It would save us money if we did it all together.
Okay, thank you.
Can you answer the question, please?
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, I don't know specifically how much we would save, but
we would have to likely close down part of the community center. We would also likely have to bring on a construction crew again. So,
okay, Councilor Zola, I've given you the latitude of speaking twice to staff. I mean,
when you say something costs extra money, that's fine to say, but if you don't define that, extra money is $1.50.
Councilor Yaneski.
Just further on this, it sort of just puzzles me from a comment that you made earlier, Mr. Hildebrand, that the project will take a year to construct, and usually when you're doing all this, the splash pad would probably be the last item that would be done on the outside of the premises. You'll be doing all the building stuff first. So if it's going to take a year, the splash pad won't get built till 2018. So using the analysis of, that $200,000 that we may need or defer or whatever, I mean, can't we just add that in the next year's budget to cover it? Because it won't get built till next year anyways.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, I'm not sure in what order things will be built on site, whether or not how things are going to be constructed, so that's hard to comment on. As well, typically we wouldn't include, we need to include in the tender the price of the if we want to build the splash pad, we need to include that in the tender, and we typically try to have the funding in place before we would include something like that in the tender to the contractor.
Yeah, I understand, but if you go with option one, it's already that additional $200,000 has already been considered by council to be included, right?
That's correct.
If we're not going to spend it this year, I mean, we would spend it next year.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, so if I understand you correctly, you were suggesting that the $200,000 go towards a bigger expansion. Is that correct?
Well, is that an option?
What I was commenting on is that what we would have to do then is include that $200,000 in the cost of the expansion, plus we'd have to include an additional $200,000 if we were to consider the splash pad in the tender. And in order to do that, we typically have to have that funding already in place. So we would need that additional $200,000 in place as we go out to tender this year.
And I appreciate that. So it would be $100,000 over budget then, if we expand that.
We would be $300,000 over budget unless we found an additional $200,000.
Okay.
Councillor Davey.
Sorry, I'm in for comment.
Okay. Can you re-click in? Mayor Verbanovic.
Thank you. I have a question for staff in terms of these sort of estimated budgets around option one, option two, the splash pad and so on. Were they known at the time of the capital budgets when we were dealing with this?
Yes.
And at the time, I guess the proposal came forward to add additional money for the splash pad because that was identified as a community priority, correct?
That's correct.
And at that same time, was there a decision made not to ask for additional money through the normal capital budget process for option two?
That's correct.
Okay. And that was made that decision was made purely by staff or by the working group, or remind me how it was made.
Through you, Chair Ioannidis, if I can recall correctly, the project team was aware that we were underfunded for the splash pad plus the option one. So we were going to bring the project team agreed to bringing forward option one, and then we made a request for the additional funding for the splash pad.
Okay, so there would have been nothing preventing coming at that time and asking for the additional money for option 2, if that was the intent, as opposed to waiting till today, correct?
I suppose we could have brought option 2 forward, yes.
Okay, but there was a decision not to.
That's right.
Okay. And again, I just want to be clear. If I look on page 7-45, the splash pad was ranked with a score of 5.29, more than a basketball court, winter rink, more than parking, more than grass area, more than front and back patio, more than community garden, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions. We're on to comments. Councillor Davey. You moved the staff recommendations. Okay.
Yes, yeah, on that. Mr. Chair, I'll be supporting the recommendation of option number 1 as put forward. I can't let it go, though. There's been this constant discussion around this horseshoe about this division of council. And whenever there's an area where it's something that certain members of council don't value, we constantly have things thrown up in the air about the challenges we're facing with our water and sewer rates and how, what we need to achieve. Whereas I look at this and I see some members of council falling over each other trying to find a way to fund this, and suddenly there's no mention of this, of these challenges we face in water and sewer. So I find that very interesting, and I expect such arguments later on in the agenda of the items we look at today. Having said that, I think staff has done a great job. I think they brought something forward in budget. We did go over budget in terms of the splash pad, which I think is fair given the community interest. But I think we have to draw the line at this option number 1.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, I think this whole process for me has been good. Having represented the Dune area a number of years ago, I understand how long you waited for this business case to come forward and the expansion to come forward. I think it's brought us some good information with regards to the need for an enhanced splash pad, as well as how big the community wants a pool out in that area. And so I think those are definitely positives that can be brought forward moving forward. I'm supportive of the recommendation that staff have brought forward. I'm happy to see that staff stayed within their budget that they had, and there are still unknowns that are going to happen through the project, and as we've seen in some of our tenders recently, we've had to increase spending, so there's still an opportunity or a potential that this project could go over budget as it's constructed, especially because it's a renovation versus a new build, or renovation / in addition. I think staff's rationale for it being the same size as other community centers, mid-sized community centers, I think that's important, and we need to live within our means for that. And I'd also just like to say that we've had the Williamsburg Community Center in place for a number of years now, and they barely have 800 square feet to deal with on a regular basis. They're able to use schools, but their space isn't very large, and so that it is a space that can be utilized, but it's also a space that doesn't necessarily need to be. And $300,000 for 800 more square feet, to me, it doesn't seem like it's a cost that I'm willing to spend. So definitely supportive of moving forward with the expansion. Long overdue, I understand and appreciate that. So I will definitely support option number 1.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yes, I would first like to make some comments about Councillor Davies' comments. They were obviously directed at me because, yes, I have always pushed for to help our customers with water and gas bills. And I'm going through this process, and I said I'm asking questions. When we dealt with the capital forecast, I did not have the business case before me. I had no idea of the difference between the two options. So it is not wrong for me to ask these questions, and it doesn't mean that I'm fiscally irresponsible now. Your comments should have waited until after the vote was taken. Now, having said that, I'm totally in support of this. I think I would have liked to have seen us do. It seems like a sensible thing to do, to look at the other options. And I know, after all, I had this area as their representative for at least 10 or so years, and I appreciate the concerns and that they have been waiting. And I think, I understand, I appreciate their concern about having a splash pad, but that question was never really put to them. Do we go with the other and perhaps wait for the splash? That's just a question. It doesn't mean I'm going to argue about it. In conclusion, I think I'm pleased to see after so many years this thing coming to a reality, and I will totally support it. But as we go forward, when we look at the tender, we have a number of issues to look at. We don't even know at this point what's going to happen when the tender comes back.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
My comment is regarding the comments made by the mayor. I really appreciate that we are, getting now the business case and understanding the difference between what we prefer, what would be the preferred option, what staff is recommending. I also would like a little bit more transparency, ahead of the budget time, rather than having it brought forward later on, when we had more opportunities to understand the global budget for 2017 and understand that some of the nuances. That would have been helpful information at that time. We can't do it all. We can't do it all every year. And I think that, we've got the right solution here with the splash pad and less than ideal sizes of the program spaces, but they are at least additional program spaces. And I have every confidence in the abilities of the community association to be able to optimize the use of what they will have. And I think that it's important that we are fiscally responsible. We have to remind ourselves, too, that we as a community have more community centers and more program spaces than quite a lot of communities of a similar size. So we are actually quite fortunate. Our residents are able to use these spaces, and so I'm glad that for the community here that we will have these additional spaces, and they're much, anticipated splash pad.
Thank you. Mayor Verbanovich.
Thank you very much. Just very briefly, I too will be supporting the recommendation that's before us, and I want to thank everybody for the work that's been done to get it to this point. I know anytime we build one of these facilities, and as has been pointed out, we have 14 of them around the community, more than most other communities around Ontario, and certainly more than most our size. And it always is a bit of a give and take, looking at what we would like to have and ultimately what we can make happen within the budgets, and in this case, the expanded budget of the project. I do, and I was pleased to hear that Mr. May indicated that staff can take a look at this notion of IPD as we go forward to the architectural and construction phase, because that may be an opportunity for us to utilize that technique and potentially maybe achieve some of the additional objectives that we would like to see that aren't included in option one today, but ultimately might be if that approach could be used, and I guess additional information will come on for council when we deal with this item. But overall, this neighborhood association is and this center is one of our early centers in terms of all the ones that we've built, and the neighborhood has grown significantly since that period, and I'm pleased to see us moving forward with it, with this expansion, in addition to others that we know we're going to be looking at in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. It really makes me happy to know that we need to expand this community center, and that is in large part to the great work of the Community Association. The programs are being responded to. The area is expanding population-wise, and that's great, but they are also reacting and connecting to the community center, and it's great that we can do this expansion. I think we've got a great balance here and great compromise. Councillor Fernandez found a way to move some money around so the splash pad can be part of option one, and it's very, very important that we have that, as your members have indicated. So thank you for all your hard work. Happy that things will expand and you can do even more. So keep up the great work, and I look forward to supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. So, you know, I wasn't aware of option 2 at budget time. Maybe I should have been. Maybe I didn't ask all the right questions. But knowing that, and I could have asked for additional funding at that time to push for option 2. But I know that the firestorm that would have created on budget day, we do have a very tight and tense budget day. So I would have been reluctant to do so even if I had the information, because I wouldn't want to be perceived as pulling from another community for my community. And I think we've worked really hard to find some solutions to expanding this community center. We've listened to the community, we took surveys, we talked to people on the street, on our family day, and I think it was really important information. So when I knew that we didn't have the $200,000 for the splash pad, I was really concerned. And with the help of our staff, and with lots of conversation, we were able to find a way to move $200,000 so that we could fulfill that need, because it isn't just a want; it's a need. That community is a long way from aquatic facilities. So it's incredible to me that we were able to do that, and that I had the support from council. As the representative for the last 7 years, I know the community has been very patient and at times very frustrated because this hasn't moved as fast as they had hoped it would be and as I had hoped it would be. But we're here, we've got the money, we've got at least a template of a design, we've talked to the community, and I'd like to see us move forward. I know they're anxious, and if there's any way we can get those shovels in the ground sooner, that would be fantastic. And Mayor, I almost said Mayor Zayer, I apologize, Mayor Urbanovic, your integrated project delivery program that you speak of, I'm hoping that we have enough information to use that in this project. I think that would be fantastic, whether it means that we come in under budget or that we find some extra dollars to do some additional things, and certainly maybe not expand rooms, but other parts to that project. And it may help our library with how that is going to be integrated into this project. So however that rolls out, that I'm anxious to see what that program delivery is all about. So not taking away from any other community that is looking and waiting for an expansion or looking and waiting for a community center, I think we found a fairly good balance. So I'm going to jump up and down, Pam, maybe not right here, that we're going to be moving ahead, and I look forward to being an integral part of that community center expansion, whether it's as a councillor, as a community member, as a board member, or standing under the splash pad. Thanks very much, everybody, for all your help.
Okay, we have no further comments. I'll just make a quick comment. I just want to thank the community members for coming in and your support and having your patience over the years, and our staff for putting forth the proposal that makes sense in their eyes, and from the comments that we made throughout this horseshoe over the years, and through our record of trying to maintain and be lean as possible. And I think they've done a great job in bringing that report forward. It's always a difficult choice for us to, whether you're buying a Jeep Cherokee, do you want to get an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive? Those are the balances that we have to look at, and we try to do the best that we can that will benefit the majority of people and still be efficient. So with that, I take recorded vote. Are we still having issues with the recorded vote? So recorded vote's been called. Those, please stand up if oh, it is? Okay. You're under control? Okay. Please vote. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations. We are falling fairly behind, and so up next is item number 8, dealing with the Idlewood Creek Environmental Assessment. Councillor Galloway Seelock moves it. I see no questions. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Now we're going to move into item number 9. Councillor Yaneski moves it. We do have some questions. Councillor Gazzola? No questions? Mr. Carmichael, are you just clicking in because of clicking in? Okay. Councillor Galloway Seelock?
I actually have an amendment that I'd like to make with regards to this. I've had a discussion a brief email with Mr. Carmichael and as well as Councillor Dave Schneider with regards to changing out Fergus Avenue for Max Becker Drive. If you look at the results, Max Becker is off by 1 point compared to Fergus Avenue. It's been stated that Max Becker has a lot more concerns, or has a lot more collisions, significant amount of collisions to anything else on the chart, as well as there's a lot more community advocacy for Max Becker versus Fergus Avenue. So I'd like to make that amendment to the recommendation. Sure.
Okay. Councillor Marsh, you were up next. I'll go to Councillor Schneider if you want to. Councillor Schneider?
I just wanted to say that through discussions with Councillor Galloway Seelock that I am in agreement with this. I already have a street in Big Knee Daimler Drive in my ward to be included in this, so I'm fine with her amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, I was going to move the same thing. Councillor Galloway Seelock beat me to it. When we look at the number of collisions on Max Becker Drive, it's astounding to me that we wouldn't want to prioritize it more of. Of course, I recognize and appreciate that the staff already has an agreed upon way of tabulating points, but when you have 23 collisions on one street, and I don't know if that's in a 5-year period or if that's it's in a 3-year period, that's a lot, and that is so many more than any other street that's on the warranted locations list. So what I'd like to do is absolutely support that recommendation. I also have a request of staff that for future reports about the warranted locations for traffic calming reviews, that we have a key so that we understand the point system a little better, so we understand how we're getting to these numbers. So for example, that how many collisions in 3 years. And I also want to understand what the maximum point value could have been for each category. And I really even encourage staff to look at when we have a number that is way outside of the trend, like 23, instead of the next one down is 9, and then that one is even 3 more than the next one down. We need to relook at our point system, and I think that we need to make these outliers rise to the top quicker than they do with our current system.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, I apologize. I missed the original conversation, and certainly as I looked at those numbers, I had some significant concerns as well. Just one quick question, Mr. Carmichael. The Carindale Drive is now number 4, which my understanding would be that would put it into next year's traffic calming.
Through the chair, in response, we redo these every year, so conditions can change on some roadways around the city that they could change their priority listing. But yes, all things being equal, it will be probably at the top of the list, but I think we need to be considerate of the fact that there's changes in that area with the Robert Ferry extension. It may change patterns in that area, so we'll have to reconsider it when we get closer to the time. But,
okay.
And happy to have a discussion with you at that time.
All right, so Robert Ferry is not even, I mean, it's on the books, but it's, unless you have some additional information that I don't see any shovels in the ground for that. The concern that I hear constantly from residents is, of course, the grade approaching the school. And the fact that the school is right on that road, so we have significant issues around that. Yeah. So, notwithstanding, we certainly don't have the 23 collisions that we're seeing on Max Becker. My understanding is, because I had stepped out, that we're talking about moving Fergus Avenue off and moving Max Becker up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock?
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to comment to further solidify the point. It's just come to my attention literally just now in between my comments that there was a child who was hit on Max Becker on Friday. So this road really does need to be done. There's 3 schools that travel along Max Becker Drive. So I think it's really important for us to look at methods to fix up this road.
Okay, we have no further questions. Councillor, Mr. Carmichael, go ahead.
Yes, through you, the chair, if you'll entertain me. Just want to respond to some of the comments made around the horseshoe. Specifically to the number of collisions, I would like to refer council to the fact that we assess the collisions based on the collision rate and not the total number of collisions, and that reflects the length of roadway that has been assessed. So the 23 looks big, but if you go over to the collisions per kilometer, yes, it's significantly higher than the others, but it doesn't stand out as much. And it's important that we do so based on rates and taking into effect that some roadways are longer than others. As far as changing the location as proposed, staff are on board with that. We recognize that the total point totals are extremely close, and just further commentary is from a staff level, we do certainly receive more calls about Max Becker than we would Fergus, so it would make sense. We're totally on board with reallocating the priority as recommended.
Okay, we have no further questions, so it's been moved. It's moved with the amendment that we have Fergus Avenue fall off the list and bring on Max Becker with the following of Fallowfield Drive and Dahmer Drive. Is that understood? Yeah. Okay, we'll vote on the amendment then. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And the remainder? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That concludes our first part of community service infrastructure. We're now going to go into special council. Mayor Bavanovic motions to recess. Go ahead.
No, you need a seconder, and you got to take the vote. We have a seconder.
Councillor Fernandez.
Okay. Okay, so we'll now go into special council.